Alright, welcome back to the backmarker update. Today we're going to be looking at the Formula 1 race at the Jeddah Grand Prix in Saudi Arabia. We're going to be covering the winner. We're also going to be talking about our backmarker finishes. We'll take a quick look at points and then wrap up the video. So, our winner is obviously Max Verstappen. I mean, he just dominated once again. He gets 2 wins in a row to start his win streak for the season. And we'll take a look at our backmarker finishes in a moment, but of course, not much happened this race as usual. It was a pretty clean race. Few off-track incidents, but nothing that surprising. When I say off-track, I don't mean like it happened in the garage. I mean like some people pushed each other off the track, but they were able to get back going. There was some pushing and shoving. I think it was between one of the Aston Martin. Maybe it was Alonso versus Russell. It was a Mercedes versus an Aston Martin. It happened in, I think, turn 7. It was a tight corner, but it just looked like they just got into each other a little bit, pushed the Aston Martin a little bit into the off section, but that was pretty much the only contact we saw all race, besides a few between the Ferrari teammates, as Behrman did an excellent job. He did an excellent job this race. Really did show that he's got potential to be a former new and upcoming F1 driver in the near future. But let's look at our backmarker finishes. So let's start with the Williams cars. The number 2 of Logan Sargent started 19th, finished 14th. Good top 15 finish for the Williams driver with a gain of +5. Good for him, showing that he can outperform his equipment. His teammate, Alexander Albon, almost got into the top 10. Started 12th, finished 11th, gain of +1. Overachieving his equipment and overachieving Williams's expectations overall. I mean, Williams is supposed to be one of the worst teams, but he's proving that he can contend for that top 10. Speaking of top 10, we'll get to one of our backmarkers who actually did manage to get a top 10, and it's a little surprising which team it was. But first, let's go to the RB cars of the number 3 of Daniel Ricciardo. Started 14th, finished 16th, -2. Pretty midday for Daniel Ricciardo. As a Formula F1 driver, I mean, it makes sense. He's got some potential to qualify up front and overachieve his equipment, but I mean, once the race starts, that equipment really does start to wear on him, and he starts to realize that I've got a lot of good talent, but if I'm not driving a Red Bull car or I'm not driving a McLaren, I'm going to finish in 16th towards the back half of the field no matter what I do. So really can't blame Daniel there. He's just he's got a lot of talent, but he's pretty much retired at this point, or semi-retired at this point, and he's driving RB cars, so not much you can do about that. His teammate showcases that perfectly. Started inside the top 10th and 9th place for Yuki Tsunoda in the number 22 for RB, but finished 15th, -6. Terrible day for him. Worst backmarker performance as far as gain is concerned with a -6. But yeah, pretty bad day for RB cars of the number 3 and number 22. As for Kick Sauber, though, number 24 of Jay-Z started 20th, finishes 18th, +2. I mean, he basically couldn't even qualify, so the fact that he's got a +2 is not surprising, but still, pretty bad day for Sauber overall. Valtteri Bottas at number 77 started 16th, finishes 17th with -1 gain. I mean, +2, but you didn't even get to qualify because your car didn't even start, so you couldn't even qualify. Pretty bad day for Sauber, and it's even worse when the other car literally finishes worse than it started. So starting low, like the worst, like some of the worst placements on the grid, and you still finish in like the worst places on the grid still, in like the bottom 4. I mean, starting bottom 4, finishing bottom 4, that's pretty bad for Kick Sauber. And let's look at Haas, which is supposed to be the worst team on the grid, and yet they are the best team finishers so far here, with Kegan Magnussen for Haas. Started 13th, finishes 12th. Solid top 12 day of starting inside the top 15, finishing inside the top 15 with a +1, showing that he can overachieve in Haas equipment. But his teammate is the star of the show, the 27 Nico Hülkenberg. I always thought he was the worst of the two. Not the worst. I always thought that him and Magnussen were kind of equal on talent, but one of them was worse than the other some days. The other one would be worse on some days, but he's showing that he's got potential. Started 15th, good top 15 qualification for the Haas for the Haas team, but finishes in the top 10, gets some points this race, so +5. I mean, that's the best. That ties Sargent for best game with +5, but getting a top 10 finish and getting some points for Haas, I mean, that's pretty good for Hulkenberg. So, gotta give him a shout out here for actually getting some points in a Haas car. That's pretty spectacular. Speaking of points, Verstappen +15 over his teammate Perez and -15. No surprise there who's on top, but let's look at everyone at the bottom. Leclerc, Sainz. I mean, Sainz is out, so the fact that he's still 6th place is pretty bad for everyone below him, except for that number 38 of Behrman. His first start in F1, he gets 6 points and manages to be top 10 in points after just one race. I know it's early on in the season, but that is still hell of an impressment. Hell of an impressment. Good job for Oliver Behrman. I hope he gets an F1 seat. I don't know where. I don't think it's going to be for Ferrari for his first year, but if he manages to get a decent seat in F1, he can really show that he's got potential and maybe get signed by one of the big teams later on. But really, really superb job for Behrman. Spectacular. Amazing. Oblivious, really. Outstanding. But that is going to do it for our backmarker update. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like if you like, dislike if you don't, subscribe if you like it, and I'll see you guys next time. Toodaloo!